It's 1:30. I'd like to call the meeting of the October 21st, 2013 Traffic and Transportation Commission to order. Roll call, Commissioner Witcher, not here. Commissioner Littlefield.
Present.
Commissioner Newton.
Here, sir.
Commissioner Hale.
Here, sir.
Commissioner Schuline.
Here.
Commissioner Jenkins. Commissioner George. Commissioner Yonkel.
Yes.
Okay, let the record show that Commissioner Witcher is the only one not here. First order of business is election of officers. Do we have a motion for a chair for next year?
I would like to nominate the current chairman to continue next term.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Hale for me.
I second the motion.
Okay, we have a second from, could you get the door, please? We have a second from Commissioner Newton. Okay. Do you have any other motions for chair? Okay, we have a motion for Commissioner Hale, seconded by Commissioner Newton, that Walter Kula will continue as chairman. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, motion is approved. Okay, we need a motion concerning the vice chairman spot.
I nominate Commissioner, is it Witcher?
Yes.
Nominate Commissioner Witcher.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Littlefield for Commissioner Witcher, who's the current co-chair or deputy chair.
Second.
And we have a second from Commissioner Schuline. Do we have any other motions? Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Littlefield for Commissioner Witcher to be the deputy chair, seconded by Commissioner Schuline. Can I have your votes, please? All right. Okay, let's move on. Approval of the minutes of the September 16, 2013 meeting of the Traffic and Transportation Commission. Can I have a motion concerning that, please?
I move that the minutes of the September meeting be approved.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Jenkins to approve the minutes. We have a second.
Second.
We have a second from Commissioner Hale. Do you have any talk about the minutes? Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Jenkins, seconded by Commissioner Hale, to approve the minutes of the September 16th, 2013 meeting. Have your votes, please. And let's see here. Commissioner Newton was not here, so he abstains. Commissioner George was not here, so he abstains. Okay, very good. Minutes are approved. Report on taxi and record service from the July, August, and September timeframe will be presented at this meeting. So if I can have your name and your address, please.
Sergeant Leroy Dancy, Oklahoma City Police Department. For the third quarter report for taxis, which include July, August, and September. For taxi, vans, and shuttles, we have for new driver permits, we have 15 new driver permits, 66 renewed driver permits, 29 transfers, and 1 duplicate driver's permit. We've had 80 passed inspections and 7 failed inspections. The majority of those inspections were just simple things like tag lights out, such as that manner. During that time, we also had 13 complaints, 9 enforcement investigations, 7 field inspections, and 5 citations. The majority of those citations for the taxis included smoking in their cabs, which they're continued doing. We got a complaint through our meter maids to PSTs, cab drivers leaving their cabs unattended. We cited 1 driver for that and sent notices to all the companies, and ever since then that's been resolved, so they're staying with their vehicles now. One of the biggest complaints that we're getting from mainly drivers is, from the different hotels of drivers supposedly paying the valets to get preferential treatment. I've talked to the Sheraton and the Renaissance, which was our initial complaints, and made their managers aware of it. They did state that they do prefer certain drivers and certain companies, but it's mainly because of the cleanliness and the customer service that they receive from there. However, since then, the Skirvin and the Concord have also been added as those hotels have valet problems, which I plan to contact them also. And I've also had one driver whose permit was suspended due to his English language proficiency. He's completed a course for the English language and is now his permit has been reinstated. And it's also very thankful that I sent him to the class for it. At that time, I was not able to even hold even a general conversation with them, and the complaint came in because he was unable, through the Action Center, because he was unable to comprehend where a customer needed to go. So, but that's been resolved as of now. On the limousines, we have 10 new driver permits, 11 renewed driver permits, 4 transfers, and 1 duplicate. And we've had, out of the vehicles, we've had 24 passed inspections, 7 failed inspections, 3 complaints, 3 investigations, 4, 4 field inspections, and 1 citation. One of the problems that we thought was going to be an initial problem was, one of the limousine companies, we got a report that their insurance had dropped. Come to find out that it was just simply a late payment that was sent in, and it's been reinstated. We've also had an increase of limousine companies that's being expected and probably planned even more. We had some legal issues we had resolved, and I'd like to thank Ms. Burnett and her legal staff for getting that resolved, which we entail bringing in more and more limousine companies to come into compliance with the city ordinances. So we plan to see more coming in and being compliant there. For the carriages and pedicabs, we have 11 new driver permits, 2 renewed, and 1 transfer and 1 duplicate. We've had 0 passed, and we had 0 inspections that all failed and passed, and 0 complaints in field inspections of those. That ought to be the end of the report.
Okay.
Anybody, any
Does
questions?
anybody have any questions for the sergeant? Yes, sir?
There we go. I do want to ask about, I'm seeing in social media a lot of promotion for Uber Cab. I'm just curious, has anyone else been seeing that or noticed they're advertising for drivers? Are they?
Well, there was a big article in the paper
Right.
this morning. We were going to talk about it during our time later. And unless you have something you want to bring up on it.
We have been made aware of Uber, and there's another company with a similar operation called Lyft, L-Y-F-T, that's also, nationally known and being brought to this city, or trying to attempt to come to this city. Like I said, if it's brought up, I have a little more information if you need any at that time.
So the sergeant's going to contact them, explain how it is here in Oklahoma City, and then see if they can get them to follow the rules that have been set up. Right?
Any other questions?
Okay, any other questions? Because I have a couple. The first one was the smoking. Was it the cabbie smoking or the passengers?
It was the cab drivers themselves.
Cab drivers smoking, okay. And you're saying that's a problem that you see?
It is a problem. The majority of our complaints are, of course, from other cab drivers. We've had very little citations on that, and the reason is the other drivers just don't want it. They want us to do something, but they don't, because it's a misdemeanor, we can't sign a citation, and they're not willing to sign one. The other complaints, that we've gotten complaints from there, and like through the Action Center, but we just didn't have enough contact information to follow up on them.
And on the valet problem, because we talked about this previously, about taxi stands, that we set up taxi stands around the whole city, especially around all the hotels, just so cabs can be put into the queue.
Correct.
So I just want to throw out to everybody, there's a reason why we do taxi stands, and they get a queue, and all these companies, they just come in and get into the queue there, two cabs, 4 cabs, 6 cabs, whatever we establish, or whatever the all the hotels and the cabbies want, basically. So what you're saying is they're actually calling other companies to say, send a cab over here instead of using taxi stands. Is that what you're saying is
Correct.
happening?
They'll use the taxi stands if they can't get a hold to the drivers, from my understanding, if they can't get a hold to their preferred drivers or...
Well, I would just like to throw out there my concern that we take up this parking spaces that could be used for other people. And so if taxi companies and the hotels don't want taxi stands because they're not going to use them correctly in a normal way, well, then we won't give them taxi stands. I mean, I'm just throwing that out as a simple frustration to what's going on here. And I would just like to just ask you, and if everybody just kind of, unless you guys have some different feelings, that you let the hotels know and the cab companies know that we take up good parking spaces in good parts of town so they can have this capability. First in, first out kind of thing. And if they don't want it, then we'll have to think about that too. Am I on point here?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but I can definitely understand the hotel side. That they get beat up old cab sitting in front. They don't want necessarily their customer getting in that cab if they, a nice cab is a phone call away. So, and if that's, is there perfectly legal for them to call their own cab, is that right?
As of right now, I mean, it's no
Yeah.
different with anyone else.
So,
Right, that's where it's at, is, yeah, they could call this cab company and say, can you send a cab over here?
Yeah.
Whereas
But I
most
don't-
hotels just operate with the whistle, you just blow the whistle, cab pulls up.
yeah. But there's obviously a difference between cab companies and vehicles. Our standards are not, you don't have to have a brand-new car. You can have an old car and still be a taxi service. And I don't know about if it has to be washed or not in Oklahoma City, but you know what I mean. You can have an old beat-up car and still possibly be driving around picking up people.
Yeah, I think it's just a personal care for the drivers.
Exactly.
I mean, we see them all the way from, obviously, from failed. They go because they're not passing inspections, always all the way up to like almost brand-new looking cars, even though they're used cars. But it's also the customer service and
Right.
in the care of the car themselves. But the issue that the drivers are having are not necessarily they understand the hotels have their preferred companies and their preferred drivers of those companies. Their issue is that there's drivers who's paying the valets themselves to receive that treatment, which has nothing to do with customer service or the condition.
Well,
of the
which we
car
talked
per
about
se.
last year or earlier this year, that's okay. There's nothing in the ordinance says that they can't. Am I right, ma'am?
It's a difficult area for the
Yeah,
city to
that's
regulate
right.
because you're talking about a relationship between two private parties, and in most cases they're picking up on in a private driveway, like in the Sheridan. That's Sheridan's private driveway. The city doesn't have the authority to regulate there, so.
But we have the authority to not have a taxi stand on the street just outside of Skirvin.
Right.
And so when there's no taxis available, if they want to call taxi cab, whatever, then they can. So we can do that,
You can disestablish a taxi stand, yes.
which we have, right. That's all I'm saying is I think they need to be aware that we've allowed this to happen, giving up good spaces for them to be able to use it. Sir?
What percentage of taxi stands are positioned for hotels? Or are they positioned where they can also accommodate people that just walk up to them or that are coming out of a restaurant? Are they mostly positioned near a hotel?
Well, I think what we've established is most of the hotels, the major hotels, have a taxi stand if they're downtown. And then we also have the taxi stands there in Bricktown for the walk-up. And then out by 4th Street or something, in that club area, there's some taxi stands out there for the walk-up.
Right, there's some in the Bricktown area that are more towards the, in the restaurant area, portion of Bricktown. There's one by the Greyhound bus station. There's some up near the National Memorial, so they're kind of scattered around town. They're not all necessarily clustered near hotels.
But some are specifically clustered near hotels.
Yes.
Yeah, there's the one that's just south of the Skirvin, I think it's south. I mean, that's mainly just for the Skirvin, and because the Chase Building's right there, which it does serve the Chase Building if somebody comes out of there. but there's a taxi stand right there, which was mainly for the Skirvin. Okay. Anything else? I'd have one other thing on the limos. You said there were some complaints and stuff. Any general subject area for the limos?
I'm sorry.
For the limos, you said there were some 7 complaints or something, or? And is
One of
there
the
a
complaints was
general-
for the insurance. Didn't forget to mention that there was one, the transport limousine company, it was approved to operate in August. It was a complaint lodged by King's Limousine that they were operating prior to that date. Since then, King's Limo has signed a citation, so it's gone through this.
But nothing like on the taxi side with smoking,
No.
where it's a general kind of thing that
No.
applies to all of them? Okay.
No.
All right. Does anybody else have anything for the sergeant?
Just a quick general observation. It's obvious that, or obvious to me, that you have done a really good job in the last just a few months that you've been here, because we have a lot more inspections, a lot more response to the public, and I just want to compliment you. I really do think that's important. It really does level the playing field for all of the vehicles for hire in our city, and I just, again, want to compliment you. I think that's a good thing.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, very good. Okay. There's no items on the consent docket, so we move on to item 5, which is the items for individual consideration. The first one is 5A, Oklahoma City Police Department Permits and ID Unit, to consider the revocation or the suspension of the Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity issued to AMC Taxi LLC for violation of 56-66 of the Oklahoma City Municipal Code 2010. Sergeant, are you ready? If you could again state your name and your address.
Okay. It's Sergeant Leroy Dancy of the Oklahoma City Police Department. And on August 12th, I received a phone call from Lieutenant Ron Hurd, who is the airport supervisor at Will Rogers Airport. He stated that there was a cab, AMC taxi number 401, who appeared to have like a standard license plate on the back of its car. Same type of taxi license plate that we would have on our own personal cars, which is what brought his attention to it, because most of them normally have a personalized taxi plate. That tag number on that one was 765K as in KBI. On that tag, it was a black sticker, non-use sticker, which is generally used for vehicles that are not insured and supposedly parked until that vehicle can get insurance. Okay. The next day, on August 13th, Dan Goodman, who is the Will Rogers Airport ground supervisor, sent me a photo of that tag that Ron Hurd had seen, and I possibly identified it, and even had a picture of it, which I have, which had the AMC Taxi's phone number written on it. Following after that, on a different day, another cab driver sent me or told me of another tag that was on the exact same cab, which now had a taxi plate number on it. I checked all the tags on those vehicles, and they all did in my inspection sheets, because the vehicle had been inspected prior to by me in June, on 3 different occasions: June 20th, July 9th, and July 17th. It had failed inspections twice before, and then that third time it did pass. So that's why I remembered that cab number. On all 3 of those inspections, it did have a different tag number than what Lieutenant Ron Hurd had shown me or given to me, and that the other taxi cab driver had given me. I checked all 3 registrations for all 3 of the tags through the Oklahoma Tax Commission. I had to go through their historicals because some of them were still on file. I checked the tag, the black decal, non-use, all 3 tags, checked to the same owner. Her name would be Rabina Washid, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. After I checked all 3 of those, I checked with Venture Specialty Insurance, which is the insuring agency for AMC Taxi, and spoke with their agent, Matt Gum, who checked this vehicle and through the VIN number to make sure it was insured. He said it was not listed on their policy. I tried to get a list of all AMC's vehicles from their company. Apparently things had changed because I did this when I very first got assigned as the vehicle fire inspector. I did this and because there were some issues with some of AMC's cars not being listed on their policy. At that time, the agent then gave me a full list of cars, and we found more cars that wasn't listed. This time, I guess things had changed in their policies, and Mr. Gum said he could tell me which cars if I had a question about a car, but couldn't give me a full list of cars. I contacted Sultan Jabbar, who is the owner of AMC, and informed them of my findings and asked him about the car. He gave me 3 different reasons of why. The initial reason was that he didn't even believe the non-use sticker was on the tag, even though I told him an officer had seen it himself, and I was looking at a picture of it. And he did, in fact, say he did know what the reason for the non-use tag was. From there, he also gave me a different reason of saying that he did remember that driver of that vehicle had left to Canada in June, and from there, he did, in fact, take the car off his policy. When the driver returned, he said he simply forgot they're going to put it back on his policy. However, in that same conversation, he then gave me a third reason of saying that the driver was buying the car from the vehicle's owner. The vehicle owner had died, and there was some paperwork problems in which the title couldn't be transferred because the owner's wife's name was not on the title. I guess they said they resolved it, which is the reason why it had the personalized tag, and then eventually it got to the regular taxi cab. The only problem with that particular story is all 3 tags checked to the same person from back in June all the way up to the point I talked to him at this time. From there, I did tell him that I would present my findings to the Traffic Commission and sent him a certified letter, which he did receive.
All right. Thank you very much. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak on this item? Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. My name is Liam O'Brien.
Come on up. When you're done, just fill out one of the...
No, I'm representing the...
That's perfect. Well, yeah, you can talk for them all you want. You just fill out one of these when you're done talking. You have up to 5 minutes. If I can have your name and your address, please.
Well, actually, and I'm here on his behalf, sir.
Yeah, sure, that's fine.
And I just want to respond. He's also here, too.
Yes, very good.
I would point out that we have proof that he has insurance on all his vehicles this time. I believe some of this misunderstanding may be a result of my Sultan's, maybe his English isn't always good. I've found when I talk to him, we have a hard time communicating. But when he said 3 stories were given, I think you'll find out that it was the same story, just that it involved different events that occurred. It's my understanding that this commission has never taken action against someone who has all their insurance, currently has insurance on all their vehicles. I would point out on his behalf that he's a small businessman here. He employs people, he provides a service, and it would be devastating for him to have his license revoked or suspended at this time. I would also point out that he has no prior actions, and it's my understanding this is the first time this tribunal has had a case of this nature, where somebody has, but if you have any questions, I am available. I would just respectfully request that no action be taken to penalize him. The statute says he shall have insurance. Well, there are insurance at this point, and we have proof of that. And I believe that even Officer Dancy is aware of that there's currently insurance on all the vehicles, so he's not in violation of the law now. Now, he can speak to any questions, and he can elaborate on any questions this tribunal may have. Thank you.
Very good, sir. If I could have your name and your address, please.
Mine, sir?
Yes, sir.
I'm William O'Brien. I'm an attorney at law, and 9009 North May, Suite 115, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. And I'm here on behalf of Sultan, and he is the owner of the AMC Taxi Company.
Very good. While we're talking, if you can go ahead and just fill out those green sheets for...
Excuse me.
Thank you very much. Okay, can we have staff input, please? Well, first of all, is there anybody else that wishes to talk on the item? Okay, can we have staff input, please?
All right, you've got our summary of the police department's findings before you. A summary of alternative actions is provided for you in the recommendations portion of this report. And so action on this item will be at the discretion of the commission.
Okay, do we have a motion concerning item 5A?
I move to a reprimand of some sort and perhaps some discussion amongst this commission of what that should be.
Okay, we have a motion to reprimand AMC Taxi for their actions concerning this item. Do we have a second? We have a second. So we have the motion from Commissioner Littlefield, seconded by Commissioner Jenkins, to reprimand AMC off of this item. Okay, now, do we have any talk on this item?
What
Yes,
does
sir.
reprimand mean?
Well,
I mean,
my...
say don't do it again? Yeah.
Well, my basic thought would be, it is a first time that they've come up here.
Right.
We just look at them in the eye and we say, this was not good. What's your plan to make sure this doesn't happen again? And if they come up with a nice plan that's laid out, he understands he can't let this happen again.
Right.
As they mentioned, the cost of another violation and a possible pulling of their license would affect him personally and all the other drivers. So I think if we just make it very clear that he has to have a plan and he needs to hold up to his plan and to fulfill the requirements, I think is that what you're kind of thinking about as a reprimand? Just make sure?
I was going to suggest a probationary period of time. I was going to
Along with that.
suggest something along the lines of 3 to 6 months, and if it doesn't happen again, no harm, no foul. If it does, then a maximum penalty will be imposed. That would give the benefit of the doubt to the owner of the company. It will not take his drivers off the street.
Right.
And keep everybody employed like we should.
Okay, so we would have to modify the motion if we go down that way. Yes, ma'am, did you have something?
Sergeant Dancy, just to clarify, there was a time with this particular vehicle that has had 3 possible license plates on it. It was picking up passengers while it was uninsured.
Correct.
Okay. What, to our counselor, play through a scenario, say there's a collision, a taxi cab is uninsured, and a passenger is injured. Where's liability? What happens? Is the passenger just out medical? I mean, I just want to understand the risk to a passenger who has an expectation that they are getting into a licensed, compliant cab, and they just got into one that's not insured.
Right. Well, they would be open to, if there was an accident, and they were injured, having to pay for those bills on their own, if they couldn't go against the insurance for the company's insurance for those injuries. They would, potentially have to sue in court to, have those costs recovered, if they could be recovered.
Well, so, ma'am, just 1 second. So, if this cab had an accident, and the passenger got hurt, they could go against the driver and sue in civil court against the driver. They could probably try against the cab company, deeper pockets, if you want to call it that, even though their insurance policy wouldn't cover it as the owner of the company. The only issue is these are contractor drivers. We've talked about that for many years, that these drivers don't actually work for the company. So is there a little tail that even though there's no insurance, is there a tie to the company for a liability, a civil liability to the company, even because of the contractor issue?
Right, and they might also have some remedies with the Department of Public Safety. I'm not an expert on
good
that.
point, right.
You know, I think
There is
the
a
driver
fine,
driving
yeah.
under the authority of the taxi cab's license, I think would introduce some civil liability there.
Good, good point. Okay.
Excuse me, but a question. What type of policy do you have? Do you have a stated vehicle policy?
Okay.
Yes, we have. My name is Sultan Jabbar, owner of AMC Taxi, residence of 1915 Old School Road, Edmond, Oklahoma. And yes, sir, we do have the policy which is required by the state. And
But is it a stated,
Yes, sir.
I mean, each vehicle? So
Yes,
do you
each
carry the
vehicle.
policy, or does each driver carry the policy?
Okay, yes, sir. Actually, how it works is each vehicle have the insurance on it, but the reason why all that happened, because the policy we have, when the driver is on a downtime, when the cars break down or they're out of country or for any reason they're on vacation, then we remove the car from the policy while it's on a downtime. But we have changed the policy now where the car will be remaining in the policy regardless, unless if the car is in wreck, after that we'll just remove that because this car is not working anymore. But that's why...
But the policy that you had at the time this problem occurred, were you insuring all the cars in your fleet?
Okay, sir, like I said, Mr. Dancy has a mention about those cars. That particular time, those were not in the policy. But previously, yes, they were in the policy, like about cab number 401. The owner of the cab, he was out of the country, and that's the reason we deleted the car. But now we have changed the policy where the car will stay in the policy, and the driver will pay the downtime instead of the company will pay from their pockets.
Okay, so the way I understand it, maybe I understood it, you own the insurance policy.
Yes, sir.
And you pay the insurance premiums on
Yes,
all
sir.
the cabs.
Yes, sir.
And just in general, the money that the cab drivers give you every month goes to pay for some of that.
Absolutely.
And you're saying if I go on a vacation for 2 weeks,
Yes, sir.
I then have to pay you extra for that insurance because
Yes,
they're
the
going to stay
driver,
on
absolutely.
it.
The driver will be covering because the driver might be using for their personal
Right.
usage,
Okay.
or the car will be sitting, so that way the company will be on a safe side. We do not have to
So,
worry.
right, he owns the policy for every vehicle that is under his license.
So you knew this was uninsured?
Well, sir, no. Actually, what happened is during only for that period when Sergeant Dancy called me, so I said, he said he called the Venture Specialty, which is the insurance company, and with my understanding, the car was in the policy. So when I called them, double-checked with them, and they said the car was not, so I called them, I faxed them the information, and they put it back. So that the car was out for just a couple of weeks because the driver was out of the country.
And during the 2 weeks, it was black tagged?
Well, sir, there was a reason because, see, the 401, it was mostly our cabs are owned by the drivers, and this particular driver, he died, okay? He passed away, and just for some reason, I just tried to help the family. The company bought the cab from them, okay? While we bought the cab, it already had the license plate, the taxi cab license plate, because it was operating as a cab. So the wife of the person was owning the cab, she went to the tag agency without notifying me to get the title transfer. If they had just simply given me the title, then I could have just got the title 42. They don't even have to worry. They don't have to spend any money. So they went to the tag agency without notifying me, and while the tag agency asked them, they need the proof of insurance before they can transfer it. So then they said they don't have the insurance because they never notified me, they never called me. So the car already had the taxi cab license plate on it, and then the tag agency gave them the private license plate with the black tag, and I was not aware of that. So that is the reason how all this happened. I mean, this is the only time. I mean, I always make sure before I put the cab, because I inspect the cab, I calibrate the cab, the meters and everything, and then before I bring it to the inspection. So this car was already inspected before. So that was the only reason it has a black tag and the private license plate. And then as soon as Mr. Dancy has called me, I sent my driver to the tag agency, and they got the new license plate with the taxi cab. So that was not my intention to, violate any of the ordinance,
Okay, sir? Do you have a follow-up?
I understand why your agent did not release information due to right of privacy, but you can extend that privilege to Oklahoma City Police to where anytime they want to verify which vehicles are insured. it
Yes,
just
sir.
takes a phone
Actually,
call.
I am glad Mr. Dancy has actually did a remarkable job in that issue. Mr. Dancy has gave us this format, which is we have to submit every month how many vehicles are operating and how many drivers are out there as well. So that also kind of gives us the privilege to keep the track, how many vehicles are out there, and as well as the drivers. So that we will make sure there's no driver is driving with their expired permit, which is, it happened just recently. Mr. Dancy has emailed all the companies. There was a driver who was driving with the expired permit. So that kind of gave us also a little bit of relief, because we do not have to, when we have to do this every month on the monthly basis, it will, I think, avoid probably 90% of the problem. If we have this, or any of the other company would have to.
Would you be willing to give something in writing to your agent that any time Oklahoma City Police calls to verify insurance that they have, that the insurance agent has your permission to provide that information?
Absolutely, yes, sir. And also, the trouble we are going through with this insurance company, Mr. Dancy can check not with only agent, with the company itself, because the agent is the third party. Right now, they have sent me a bill for $6,000 for 11 cars, and I was so shocked. And this is due on the 24th of this month. And they have sent me this bill on the 13th. And when I look at the bill, $6,000, I called the American Century, and I said, would you please read me the list of the vehicle? And they have 15 vehicles in the list. And the agent, I called the agent, they have 11. They have a 4 extra vehicle, the American Century, which is the carrier. The underwriting department, they were charging me for 15 vehicles instead of 11. So now they have not even given me a word back yet how much I have to pay for this month. So I'm also not very happy with their service, how it's working. So I have found a local company in Edmond, which is local agent, not the company. So I can, it's about like 4 or 5 miles from my office, so I can even go there and talk to them personally. And today, even while I was coming here, I request the agent, please send me the current vehicle list so I can present here. I called them around like 9 or 9:30. They send me one policy's vehicle list and the driver. I never required that. I called them again while Mr. Bill was in my office, and they said, okay, we'll send another policy's vehicle list. They sent me the driver list instead of sending the vehicle list. So it's been so frustrating dealing with them, because since they're on so much distance, and whatever I ask them, they do not fulfill my need. And that's why I'm trying to, probably from next year, which is my policy is expiring on May the 25th of next year, I will try to find somebody local, would have a better understanding. We will not have this issue again.
Sir, you have anything else for him? Okay, I want to go back real quick, because you tried to talk for just a second when we were talking about civil.
Thank you.
Did you still want to get up and speak a little bit?
I was going to say, Mr. Kula, that of course he would have, an injured party would have recourse against the owner. And they probably wouldn't have to sue. They probably could just make a phone call and say, Okay. And I also point out that as he set forth, there was never a time when it wasn't covered by insurance. There made some erroneous information, but it appears that it, in fact, was covered by his insurance, just that when the widow was not aware of that fact when she went to the tag agent.
All right, any other comments? Sir?
I have a question, Sergeant. You mentioned in your report that this vehicle had failed twice prior to this.
Yes.
Do you know what those violations were or failures were?
Yeah, we have, let's see, the majority of them was like body damage. Let's see, I might also add that I have a copy here of the inspection, the original inspection, and the tag, the original taxi tag that was on the car did expire in July of this year, which, you know, the initial complaint came in August. So that might have been one reason why, Mr. Jabbar said, why I did not have, she wasn't able to present insurance to the tag agency because it had already expired, the taxi cab. So I assumed she would have to get a new tag because of that if she was trying to title transfer versus just renewing the tag. On the body damage, on the failed inspection itself, it's pretty much damage all over in paint. Looks like we have, it also had a decal on it, the special rate to transfer, special rate to airport on it, which we had an issue about that on a different deal for two different companies about some of the decals. They were just, looks like the horn didn't work. The transmission wouldn't allow it to stay in the park, so when he thought it was in park and was back just basically in neutral. And that's the car that I could just easily just push it even though he thought it was in park. So it was a lot of mechanical and body issues with that. And this is also the initial, when I found out about a lot of this, is also the time that he said he was buying it from the owner. I had assumed, and I could have been wrong, I assumed he meant Mr. Jabbar, and I go, but he also meant the vehicle owner himself, who the vehicle's name was in.
Well, I'm trying to get an understanding of why this vehicle was black tagged. And have these repairs been made?
The repairs had been made, and it did finally pass inspection. As far as the decal for the license plate being black tagged, that would have, our inspection would have nothing to do with that. That's strictly Department of Public
I
Safety.
think as was briefed by the owner, if I recall correctly, when the widow tried to go sell the vehicle, they asked her, provide insurance to us, please, so we can transfer. She did not have insurance, so they gave her a new regular plate with a black tag, which she then put on the vehicle, which he didn't know about. Because as far as he's concerned, it was a taxi vehicle ready to go. Am I correct? Okay. So that is where I think it all kind of, that month and a half time frame, it got all messed up there. But as they're saying, the vehicle was always on the insurance policy. Is that true? Is that what you said, sir? It just wasn't clear to him that it was on the insurance policy. It wasn't clear it was an operational taxi authorized to be an operational taxi, and especially with the black tag on it. So, yes, ma'am.
Sounds like it wasn't clear to the insurance company that it was insured, because when the police department called, it was not on the list.
That's a good point. No, but you did say that you think it was. Well, come on, please.
On that particular time, like I said, this driver, he was out of country for about a week and a half or so. So that's the reason, that's why we delete the car from the insurance. But prior to that, yes, of course, it was in the policy. And on that particular time, when the officer called, yes, it was, with my understanding, it was in the policy. When I called them, they said they did not have
Even when it was black tagged?
What's that?
Even when it was black tagged in the
During black
process
tag-
of sale?
No, sir.
It wasn't insured then?
No, with my understanding, it was, but it was not. Then right after that,
Okay.
I sent them the facts, and it was all
So you
covered.
thought it was?
Yes, sir.
But it wasn't?
Yes, sir.
Did I understand your attorney to say that it was, in fact, insured the whole time?
He thought it was.
It was my understanding it was, but I would defer to my client.
Okay, but, I mean, you did make the statement that it was insured the whole time?
Was it insured?
No, not only that particular time, no, sir, because like I explained before, my driver, yes.
So it went off that time period. They're being, it's not in service, so it was not in coverage. But as you explained earlier, his policy now says even if they're out of the country or not in service, the policy remains.
Right, well, we're just going back to the time of the black tag, of the trying to transfer. It was not insured at that time.
On that time now, sir, actually, at that time, with my understanding, yes, it was, but I have the insurance for all the cars.
You thought it was,
Yes, sir.
but it wasn't.
It was not in there,
Very-
yes, sir.
Very good point, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Okay, any other questions, ma'am? You have something?
I guess one thing I would say, we hope this doesn't come up again, but would be to bring documentation showing this is the date, this is the fax I sent to my insurance company when I took it out of insurance and when I put it back into insurance. Just a suggestion.
From this point forward, it's going to be on the policy all the time. I will work with the detective and the officer to ensure that he has the whole list.
Sergeant, do you have a list that shows this vehicle is currently insured?
Yes, he did, Mr. Jabbar did provide me with a list of all of his vehicles on a letterhead from his insurance agent.
So it has passed its most recent inspection with you, and it is on that list of insured?
As of the records that I show, yes.
Okay.
Okay, any other comments on this item? Ma'am?
Well, I agree with the recommendation that we need some documentation that this is occurring, and that if it happens again, then they're subject to further action. So I agree with the motion, but I'd like to have that stipulation in there.
Well, that's where I'll go back now. Once we're done talking, I'll go back and ask for a modified motion before we vote. So any other talk on the item? Okay, so Commissioner Littlefield, would you be receptive in changing your motion to include 3 to 6 months? How much, Commissioner Newton, how much would you think would be a good amount of time after this talk?
I'd say 180 days. March, our March meeting would be appropriate, as long as it does not happen between now and then. The matter is closed.
Okay, so what you're asking for the motion to change is to reprimand AMC Taxi and to put them on a probation for 180 days to our March meeting. And if nothing comes up and everything's fine, then they go back to normal operations. If something does come up, then we can reinstate this issue.
Exactly, yes, sir.
What you're saying? Is that okay? I mean, do you understand what we're saying?
Yes, sir, absolutely. But again, like I have explained, how the insurance is working, how the agents are working, because if Mr. Dancy called the insurance right now, they would show 11 vehicles in one of the policy,
Very good.
right? But they have 15.
Right, we understand you're
Right?
having
They have 15.
some
But
problems.
some of the time, the agent does not have because for some reason, between the American Century and the Venture Specialty, there's a misunderstanding or they do not send the fax through. So what I will do, I will, 180 days, that's perfect time, I appreciate that, and I will, I think we'll just go for that, that's fine.
Okay, sure. Okay.
We'll work with Mr. Dempsey to make sure he gets all the listing needed. I will be available for that purpose as well.
Okay, so, do we have more talk? Are we good?
Just for clarification, this probationary period is about ensuring vehicles are insured. This isn't a inspection thing. I mean, I want to be very clear for their sake, what
Very good
is the
point.
probationary
So it's
period?
not something else, we get a complaint of some other thing, we can't snowball this one on top of it. You're just talking this kind of issue.
Insurance,
Okay, is that fine?
Right.
Okay.
And I'd also like to add to that motion that some documentation be presented that they have a plan to ensure that this won't happen again. We talked about the monthly report that you'll be doing. I think it would be a really wise thing to present that documentation that you are going to be doing that to ensure that this doesn't happen again, in addition to the 180-day probation.
Very good.
I'd like my motion to say as such.
Okay, so, as such.
Would you like me to say it?
Well, let me say it and see if you like it. All right, so we have a motion from Commissioner Littlefield, seconded by Commissioner Jenkins, for item 5A. The motion is to reprimand AMC Taxi for the violation of the insurance, to put them on a probation till our March 2014 meeting concerning any other insurance issues, that this item could come back up and be tagged on to any other violation. That's the motion. Am I correct? Second, was that correct? Okay, we have a motion. Now can I have your votes, please? Okay, item is approved. Wish you luck, sir.
We don't need to appear at the March meeting, provided there's no violation.
No, it's just a placeholder there, just in case something comes up, it's on record. Very good. Thank you for your time, sir.
Commissioner Kula, real quick, since this has come up and we are going to have to deal with this possibly in the future, maybe it would be a good idea to warn taxi companies, Sergeant Dancy, and I hate to ask you to do more work, believe me, I do, but if we could ask that you let the taxi companies know that if they are going to come and represent themselves at a meeting and they have had an insurance issue like this, to bring the documentation with them. We want to see it at that meeting at that time. That way we can verify. We don't necessarily have to resort to any type of probation at that sort, like we've had to do with Mr. Jabbar here. It would be preferable if we had that today. So if there's any way we could get to the taxi companies, hey, please do that.
Well, if possible, the documentation at the time of violation.
Yes, sir.
The problem is if you bring it in like you have today, showing that, well, now they're insured today. What about the accident that happened whenever your agent said there was no coverage? You're dealing with the public. And you've got a responsibility to make sure that in the event of an accident, excuse me, that your passengers are taken care of.
Okay. Ma'am?
Last remark, does Sergeant Dancy, when you communicate to the taxi cab companies, does he need to do anything that says, make sure I am permitted with all your agencies where I have carte blanche open to know which of your cabs are on your policy? Or is that an understood thing? Is it a case by case or should it be understood? How does he, I don't want this to happen.
Well, what I think she's asking is, do you have do you have a problem when you call other cab companies insurance companies?
Generally what happens, if I call a particular vehicle, they'll go ahead and give me that information. Where the problem comes in is if I try and verify the complete list. Mr. Jabbar has roughly 10, 15 cars, which is not that big of a problem, but we have other companies like has 100, 200. It would take some time for them to print off for me to verify each one. I would have to refer to Burnett as far as we have a legal standing to actually be added. I'm not sure if we do or don't. If we do,
well, I think what she's saying is maybe ask all the cab companies if they could let their insurance agents know that if you call, that it's okay.
Yeah.
Right. There's not an ordinance requirement right now, but we could just ask the insurance companies to make sure that's available.
Yeah. Very good. Okay. Sir, did you have something? All right. Anything? All right. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I would like to also address about when we are bringing the car for the inspection, is that necessary to make the appointment? If you can check with Mr. Dancy, because some of the time we bring the car and it is okay for them to bring it like that without the scheduling, and sometime it is not. So I will just ask them if they...
Well, that's a very good point.
Yes.
That'd be up to the sergeant. So that's up to you guys offline. Okay, very good. All right, thank you all. All right, item 5B, Pinnacle Limousine Service, LLC, 300 South Miller Place, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, 73108, to consider a request to amend the Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity issued to Pinnacle Limousine Service, LLC, doing business as Black Diamond Limousine Service, in order to increase its fleet size from 2 to 30 vehicles in limousine service. Do you have anybody here to talk about item 5B? Can we have staff input, please?
All right, you've got all our comments before you. This company was originally licensed back in August of 2009 when they submitted an application to operate 2 vehicles in limo service, and they are seeking to increase their fleet size. So staff recommends approval of the amendment to the Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity as presented.
Okay, do we have a motion concerning item 5B?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion from Commissioner Newton to approve. Second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Littlefield. Any discussion on this item?
Does the name Pinnacle go away altogether, or does the whole fleet then become Black Diamond?
The Pinnacle is the name of the company that's operating, but they're operating under the business name of Black Diamond. So no, they're both there, but I guess from an operating standpoint, people will know them as Black Diamond Limousine.
Okay, any other talk about item 5B? Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Newton, second by Commissioner Littlefield to approve 5B. Can I have your votes, please? All right, item is approved. Item 5C, VIP Limousine Service, Inc., 1831 East 71st Street, Tulsa, Oklahoma, 74136. Consider an application for a certificate of public convenience and necessity from VIP Limousine Service, Inc. to operate 23 vehicles in limousine service. We have somebody here to speak on this item? Yes, sir? If I could have your name and your address, please, and you have up to 5 minutes.
Thank you. My name's Charles Cotton. I go by Chuck. 1831 East 71st Street, Tulsa, 74136. Here, if you have any questions, I appreciate your vote.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Can we have staff input, please?
You've got everything, all the information you have before you on this it's a new application, and we're recommending approval of it, of the approval of the certificate of public convenience and necessity as presented.
Thank you very much. We have a motion concerning 5C.
Move approval.
We have a motion to approve from Commissioner George,
Second.
and we have a second from Commissioner Jenkins. Any talk on this item?
Just a quick question for the applicant. It says your rates are custom rates. Is that based on services requested, provided? What?
Yes, all of our rates, we have a range, but we operate each car as a profit center. So we can make any money in this business. It's a short margin business. So each customer that calls in, we ask them what they have in mind, so we know exactly what we're quoting on. You see, because there's so many variables, weddings or not on the town, or so forth. So we give that range, which is from $95 an hour up to $250 an hour. So it can fall any place in there, in that range, depending on competition, of course, and, basically cost.
Well, that's a great point. Is this kind of the first one to have come in with a variable cost? Usually we see like $65 an hour or whatever. Does anybody recall any?
No, I was under the impression that we have several different vehicles that have different seating capacities, some larger, some smaller.
Yeah, it's the nature of the industry statewide that it's fixed amounts per hour.
Right.
And that's their business, but I just do it different, as I just mentioned.
So it deals with which vehicle, how many vehicles, that kind of thing, goes by how much per hour?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And there's so many factors. You compare, we're on Tulsa too, of course. You just compare the distance in Oklahoma City, the radius compared to, say, Tulsa. So you've got to factor in all your extra costs just to do business in Oklahoma City because of the extra mileage per billable hour, you see. Because otherwise, if you don't, you're going to become insolvent real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have an input, sir? Okay. But that's a good point. I mean, ma'am, is this a concern to have a variable rate of that nature?
Right. I guess I was under the impression that you would be charging the same rate for each vehicle every time. So as in if you're renting out a town car, you would be always providing the same rate for that particular type of vehicle.
I'm not sure I quite understand that question. Sorry. I have a
So
hard time hearing it, too. I'm
if
sorry.
you're renting out a town car, would you be charging different rates for that particular vehicle?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. On sedan service is less than, let's say, a Hummer. or
Right,
Escalade.
but every time you rent that town car, it would be at the same rate, basically.
Yes, pretty much. And we have corporate rates. We do a lot of business with, Fortune 1000 companies, for example. And of course, we're a national company, and as you know, we're interstate licensed. So we have a lot of variances from other markets that come into Oklahoma City, for example, and we have to meet that criteria. So if Devon Energy, for example, or the Thunder, if they have a guest in here or an NBA player, whatever, we do a lot of that type of business. Those rates may be out of L.A. or New York, and we have to honor those, you see.
So I think what the concern is, if I could just summarize as I'm seeing it, is most limos that we've done in the past, on their application, has had a set
fees.
fee, or a geographic thing also to throw in, okay, if you're going from Region 1 to Region 6, in this car would be this kind of rate.
Right.
That kind of thing is what we've seen. We've never, in my opinion, approved a limo service with a generic 95 to 250 range, and you just figure it out.
Well, you did me before. I've had a license here with the city for many years, up until the Oklahoma Corporation Commission told us we didn't have to have the license. They refunded back our money, and the counselor knows all about that. And so we've always had a variable. For the 20-plus years I've been in business here in the state, we've always had the variable.
Right, but not
rates.
here in Oklahoma City.
Yes.
Under a different company
No,
name,
same company.
but not approved by the Traffic Commission.
No, it was approved. When we had a license here
approved some
with
years ago.
the Traffic Commission for many years, and then because in
Without a license.
Section 56, there was an interpretation by the Oklahoma Corporation Commission. We get a letter from them and a refund check.
So
They said we were
you're saying
exempt.
you are
Yeah.
a certified limo service in Oklahoma City from a Traffic and Transportation
Prior.
Commission meeting.
Previously we were.
Then why are we here now?
Sorry, which
Okay,
is since expired,
it expired.
right? He was approved before, and the license expired.
Okay.
So he's coming forth now with a new application.
I don't know why, because when the unified carrier registration came into effect a few years back, our process agent, my attorney, said we had to adhere to this. So we filled out the forms, paid the money. And now, the UCR filing, everything goes to the Oklahoma Corporation Commission. And they made a determination that, being interstate licensed, that we were exempt from having to have a City of Oklahoma City license.
Okay, and so then you let it expire,
So it expired.
and then what happened?
Well, we tried to get a license here, and they told us that we couldn't. Amy Douglas, the assistant municipal counselor at that time, she told us that we were exempt, that it was unenforceable.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry, that was a little bit of a misinterpretation, I think, of exactly what she said. Our ordinance is required to get, the operators are required to get a OCC license. If you are licensed under the Interstate Carrier Act, then you're not required to renew your state license every year. So we weren't saying that he was exempt from all of the licensing requirements, just from providing the OCC license, that he could provide his interstate license.
To us for approval. Okay, got it. All right. Okay, I see.
So,
Yeah.
anyway, it's all been worked out. We've had a meeting with
It's so now
the
we're here.
municipal counselor's office and the OCC people, and so we've all have pretty much come to an agreement, and that's why I'm here. So we appreciate your vote.
Okay, so the concern brought up for talk about item 5C is this range of price that's available for the same vehicle, different events, that kind of thing, whereas in the past we've seen basic rates or a or a chart saying if you're going to go from Region 1 to Region 6, it'll cost you this much more. You know, we've seen stuff like that that would modify and show us how they compute, is what we've seen in the past. And this one here, he's saying he's just going to compute it himself and come up with a cost.
Yeah, they tell us exactly what they have in mind.
Right.
I mean, there's so many, every booking is different. It's customized. We do things that my competition, nobody does. And that's just the way we operate our business.
Okay, so let me just ask council and staff, is it a concern to have this range of operation for cost of service?
You know, the commission's charged with considering whether the fares are reasonable and non-discriminatory. So I think with providing different rates for the same vehicle to different parties, that could be a concern under the ordinance, I think.
Sir?
Would you be able to provide us base rates, and then what would cause a variance of that base rate? What are the different additions that you would provide?
I mean, I don't know how I could do that. It'd be just simply because there are just so many variables. For example, if they were going to go to Mickey Mouse and have dinner, a couple, let's just say they want, to have a few drinks, and they don't want to take a chance, driving. We do a lot of that. And maybe we're going to calculate pretty much how much mileage we're going to put in, what our fuel cost is, and maybe we give them a really good deal compared to if it was just going to be 4 hours of cruising around town, you see. So why make them pay all that extra money, when it's not necessary, and we can still be competitive and still make a profit? I mean, that's just one little example, you see.
So like an example, so what you're saying is if somebody gets a vehicle for 4 hours and want to drive around town, and it was a $80 per hour fee, whatever, that would be okay, but because if they're just going to go to a place and the driver's just going to park for 3 hours out of the 4, you may bring the price down, and you want to have that flexibility to do that.
Yes, And
the same thing, the flexibility to go up, because if somebody wants to go to Shawnee and then head on over there to Yukon and really go far.
If they go to Tulsa to a concert, for example, and, we pick them up within the city limits, they go to Tulsa for a concert, that's 7-8 hours, and you've got to factor all that extra cost in. Because if you don't, and you're sitting there at a certain price, then your margin is going to shrink. Sometimes you might even lose money, And so it's as I said, we operate on a profit center basis, and that's what we attempt to do. And we're noted. We've been at this a long time. We're the largest company in the state as far as total volume. We're the only company that operates both cities, and we kind of know what we're doing, and and we're noted for giving we advertise best rates, celebrate safely. Those are our taglines, and we really try to give a fair
So you're
price
saying
to the
that
public.
there could be hundreds of factors that weigh into a cost,
Thousands.
and that it wouldn't be able to show a basic rate structure.
Exactly, yeah. For example, just your cost, say, from the airport to the Concord, I mean, compared to going to North Oklahoma City, that's quite a difference, And if you can save somebody $10, well, pass that savings on to them. That's our philosophy,
Okay. So council, if you have some more input.
Maybe if you could supplement with the lease amount that you charge for, like, say, a town car, theoretically, the least amount up to the most expensive amount for that car, and just break it down a little more into each vehicle, each type of vehicle.
Well, when we say 95, we go lower than that, too, because I have some certain customers that require that. As I mentioned, let's say if we have a client, let's just say Lakers come to town, and we do some business with them, and if Kobe wants to go down to to the casino, for example, then that's going to be more money, you know. If he just wants to go, he or LeBron, all these superstars use a private car service, and they just want to go eat at Mickey Mantle's, then we shouldn't have to charge them, you see, that extra if they were going to go down to Riverwind. You see what I mean?
So what I think council is saying, based upon the requirements for the licensing, and one of the concerns from up here, is if you could show a basic structure, low-end, high-end, per your different vehicles that you have.
Well, we got quite a variety of vehicles.
Right.
I mean, obviously, our 24 passenger, we're not going to charge. I mean, that's $250 per hour. That's at the top of the, but that's a huge limo.
Right, well, that's what I think
We're not going to
council is
charge.
asking, if you could
An
supplement.
8-passenger Lincoln Stretch, we're not going to charge $250 because you got.
Well, but see, that's, I think, what she's asking if you could do to alleviate the concern up here on the
You
horseshoe
mean put a range on each vehicle we got?
category.
Yeah, we could do that. I mean,
Because our concern
we
is,
can put it, I'm sorry, go
our
ahead.
concern is for the certification of the license to the consumer out there. We're
Sure,
representing all the consumers
absolutely,
out here,
yeah.
and we want to make sure that the product that's being given is proper for them. And what you're saying does meet the product that you're going to give them.
Sure.
Am I right, counsel? Is that the reason for that,
Yeah, we can-
that cause, that statement?
Yeah, I mean, we want to be sure that the rates charged are non-discriminatory.
Right.
That each consumer is,
Knows that they'll fit into this category somewhere based upon their mission of that vehicle.
that they don't get to the end of, the trip and they say, you owe me $150 instead of $75, like they thought that they were going to.
Well, a point in case, we can do pretty much whatever you want as far as a scale or whatever. But if you check with the Better Business Bureau, both cities and Norman, too, we've never had a pricing complaint.
No, we're just
We've
looking
never
at
had a
this
piece
is
of
different than
litigation
what...
anyplace.
Right, this is just different than what we've seen.
Yeah. I mean, there is a lot of predatory pricing that goes on in this city, Tulsa and others, too. We can't do anything about that.
Right.
Because, as you're probably aware, our association, we have got it's down to now about 29 companies operating illegal in the state of Oklahoma with no OCC license. And that's on the Attorney General's desk as we speak.
So, counsel, would we be able to move on this item and just have him provide that product as an attachment to his application?
Right, you could approve it, subject to him providing a supplement on his rates.
So that way we can
I'll
move
fax
on.
that in this afternoon. I know what you want, and we'll just do just a range
Okay.
per
And-
category of a
People-
vehicle.
Town cars,
Sure.
stretch limousines, Hummers, et cetera.
Yeah.
And would that go to your concern that you brought up?
Yeah, it's not a problem. We just don't want to go over the top. That's the main thing.
I think it does, however, part of my concern was when I see something called custom rates, there's subjectivity, there's variables of, I want the limo full of Diet Coke or I want it full of the other end of the spectrum. So I know there's a lot of variability. I just want to feel like, the way I'm interpreting custom rates, that the rates are not changing based on who's calling. That's where I'm going. I want to make sure this wedding party, if they want 7 Diet Cokes, is being charged the same price as this wedding party who wants 7 Diet Cokes. But that's where in my mind I go, it's an open marketplace, it's private industry. What they charge for a McDonald's burger at the airport is a whole lot different than what they charge. So there's fluctuation that I want to not meddle in, but I just wanted to feel a sense of non-discrimination to that if I want a Lincoln and I want 7 Diet Cokes, I want it to be the same, and I'm going to go 12 miles, I want the same person, you know. So I don't want to get in your business that deep. So
Yeah, I
that's where, I'm not sure how to leave this.
No, that's a
Commissioner.
good point.
That's where my,
In other words, you don't want discriminatory pricing. At the same,
where I'm
Right, yeah,
going,
but
and
that's the
there's a
reason
difference
why you
between
put...
custom rate pricing and discriminatory pricing, as there is predatory pricing.
Right.
well, and my assumption is, and this might be wrong, every other limo is probably operating the same way.
Not on the
With-
application.
Yes, but he's been forthright enough to say there's custom pricing. I think maybe I'm overworking it a little.
No, I don't think so. I don't think you are. I think you've got a point here, because without having to tip a lot of my marketing strategy, obviously, but there are the majority of the competition in the state pretty well stick. You know, the first question people ask, well, how much? How much an hour? You know, that's the first question. They don't care what kind of car, how much. And if you come right out of the box and you say, well, it's $65 an hour or $150 an hour or whatever, and maybe you're just, they've got that in their mind, and then all of a sudden they want something more than that, then you're hooked, you see, because that's what you said, and that's what you better represent. And if it's that price, then you've left a lot of extra money on the table, and you can't do that.
So you're okay with modifying your application, sending in a product that would just show some basic guidelines out there for
Per
cost of
type of
service?
vehicle. Yeah, I know exactly what Jill wants. It's not a problem.
Okay.
And
So we have any other talk on this item?
Well, I have one question.
Ma'am.
Sure.
When we say how much per vehicle, the range, you know, are we talking about going from a 10-seat limousine to a Hummer that has 24 seats in it? You know, I can see having to break down a lot of
Right, that's what he's going to
different-
provide.
Okay.
Is, you
I
know,
wanted to be sure.
you're a basic
Yeah.
town car compared to the 24-passenger, and then also distance kind of thing, throwing that in there, and service
there's
provided.
basically about, I mean, and most of this is the category of the size of the cars is what the insurance companies are concerned with, is the seating capacity rating on that particular vehicle, and that's what the insurance will cover. If you're overloaded, you have an accident, I mean, they're not going to pay, because then we're in violation and so forth, and that's one thing you can't do, is to overload the seating capacity. And those seating capacities are on the door jambs of each of these cars, or they should be. I'm sure he checks for that, too, when he does his inspections. So, you know, it's...
Okay. All right, any other talk on this item? Okay, we have a motion. Well, let's go to the motioner, to Commissioner George. Are you okay with just modifying the motion to just say that he'll provide a further...
Yeah, I think that's fine since he's agreed to it, although if the city, a little bit back and forth on this, just because if it's allowed to be variable, then, I mean, asking him to price his cars, I mean, he can put $10 to $500, and it's, there you go. So, to me, either the city should allow variable, which I think they should, or not, but, and in which case he really shouldn't have to provide that list. But, if he's fine with it, I'm fine with it.
But we've had variable in the past, but it's been explained what the variations are.
But,
If you're going from Region 1 to Region 2...
I mean, you know, if he overprices himself, he'll be out of business. And so, I mean, that's up between him.
Okay,
And again, but he's fine with it, so I'm fine with it.
Right. I just want to clarify or add one more thing. If a company that's got a working with a certificate through the city is operating, they can, by filing a rate change with our licensing department, they can go ahead and make amendments to their pricing schedules, and that's not something that comes back before the commission. Once they're operating, they can make changes to their pricing based on the services they provide and that sort of thing. The only time they would come back to the commission would be, in the event that someone's let like a business license lapse, where they'd be expanding their fleet beyond the number of vehicles that they were originally approved to operate with.
So they have to start at a point, and then they can modify it? Is that what you're saying, that they have to submit something to begin with?
Right. It's part of the application process, so they have to indicate what their anticipated, rates are going to be. But in the future, they can apply for rate changes. It's just not something that's vetted through the commission.
Okay. Oh. Okay.
Okay, so you're okay with the little modification to the motion, and Commissioner Jenkins, you're okay with it? You still seconds? Okay. All right, so we have a motion from Commissioner George, seconded by Commissioner Jenkins on item 5C, to approve the application with a request to the applicant that they provide a expanded fee structure to be attached to the application. Is that a good motion? Okay, we have the motion. Can I have your votes, please? All right, thank you for your time, sir.
Okay, thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
Okay, we go to item 5D, Regina McCurdy, 237 Southwest 22nd Street, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, 73109, to consider a request for a no vehicle in excess of 2 access restriction on Southwest 22nd Street between South Robinson Avenue and South Harvey Avenue. Do we have anybody here to speak on that item? Staff input, please.
Okay, the applicant indicated she would not be able to present her item at the commission, but she asked that it be heard anyway. In the recommendations portion of the report, we note that this particular type of an axle restriction, which essentially is just like a large truck restriction, may curtail some use of 22nd Street by large vehicles having more than 2 axles. The way the ordinance is constructed, vehicles that have business within an area, legitimate business on a street, can still utilize those roads for the purpose of delivering or picking up materials or merchandise, and then only by entering such street at the intersection nearest the destination of the vehicle and proceeding no further than the nearest intersection thereafter. So as far as how this street would be used by large trucks, I believe the applicant's intent is to curtail its use by those vehicles that really don't have business on this particular street. It's not to say that a large truck couldn't use this street. This is just an effort to curtail it from being used by those that don't have legitimate business on the road. So action on this matter will be at the discretion of the commission.
Okay, do we have a motion concerning item 5D?
I move approval.
Okay, we have a motion to approve from Commissioner Jenkins,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Hale. Do we have any discussion on this item? Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5D from Commissioner Jenkins, seconded by Commissioner Hale. Have your votes, please. Item is approved. Item 5E, Mark McKee, Senior Project Manager of Flintco LLC, 2302 South Prospect Avenue, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, 73129, to consider request 1, remove 2-hour metered parking on the south side of East Sheridan Avenue from Joe Carter Avenue to approximately 295 feet west of the west curb line of Joe Carter Avenue, and 2, establish a passenger loading zone on the south side of East Sheridan Avenue from approximately 210 feet west to 275 feet west of the west curb line of Joe Carter Avenue. Anybody here to speak on this item, sir? Staff input, please.
Okay, we received this request in conjunction with a redevelopment of a site down in the Bricktown area at 328 East Sheridan Avenue. A Hilton Garden Inn and Homewood Suites is being constructed by Flintco. As part of their project, they are moving the curb line out on Sheridan to the point where it's going to eliminate a number of inset parking spaces which are currently metered, currently have 2-hour parking meters on them. And also as part of their application, they'll be constructing a lay-by or a little inset area for passenger loading purposes towards the west end of their property. And so the first portion of the item presented is to eliminate metered parking in the area that's immediately to the west of Joe Carter Avenue, and the second part is to establish basically a general public use passenger loading zone in the lay-by that's being constructed by the hotel.
Okay, do we have a motion concerning item 5E?
Move approval?
We have a motion from Commissioner George to approve item 5E.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Schuline. Do we have any talk on this item? Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5E from Commissioner George, seconded by Commissioner Schuline. Can I have your votes, please? Item is approved. Item 5F, Leaf Nelson, RPA, CPM Property Manager, 100 Kingman LLC, 101 North Robinson Avenue, Suite 810, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, 73102, to consider a request for the establishment of a commercial and passenger loading zone on the east side of North Oklahoma Avenue from approximately 82 feet north to 137 feet north of the north curb line of Wanda Jackson Way. Anybody here speak on this item? Staff input, please.
All right, Mr. Nelson's requested basically currently we have no parking restrictions posted on both sides of Oklahoma Avenue between Sheridan and Reno, and what he's seeking to do is basically make use of a shallow lay-by that was constructed on the east side of Oklahoma Avenue. If you looked at some of the photographs that are provided in your staff reports, you can see that some vehicles are currently using this particular lay-by. The width on Oklahoma Avenue is sufficiently wide enough so if someone were using it, it would not impede the flow of traffic significantly on Oklahoma Avenue. And one of the pictures that's on page 6 also shows a delivery vehicle which is parked in basically what would be a median opening on Oklahoma Avenue, making a delivery. So approval of this shallow lay-by for use as both a passenger and a commercial loading zone would help meet the needs of some of the businesses operating in that area.
Okay, do we have a motion concerning item 5F?
I can move approval.
We have a motion from Commissioner George to approve item 5F.
Second?
Seconded by Commissioner Schuline. Do we have any discussion on this item?
These loading zones marked in any way for how long you can be there? Or are they just marked loading zone?
Typically, when we mark them, that we will sign them like a passenger loading zone. We'll call for the vehicle to be attended. So, and the way the codes are written, that you can utilize a commercial loading zone so long as you're actively loading or unloading. But as far as using it for an unlimited parking space, that's not the intent of a loading zone, and that's not allowed under our codes. So there's not a particular time restriction. I mean, if you were to move if you were to be moving an office or something along that line, you had like several large vehicles that were coming in all day long. I mean, if you needed to make use of the loading zone for that purpose, then it would be available for that, and there really wouldn't be a restriction. The only restriction, I guess, that there is that you're actively using it for loading purposes.
Okay. Any other talk on item 5F? Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5F from Commissioner George, seconded by Commissioner Schuline. Have your votes, please. Item is approved. 5G, Mark Noto, 2905 Lamppost Lane, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, 73120, to consider a request for a stop control on Leenan Elm Road at its intersection with Lamppost Lane. And we do have, sir, if I could have your name and your address, and you have up to 5 minutes, sir.
Mark Noto, Oklahoma City. The only reason I came here today is I got your guys' report, and I understand that you guys collected all this data, and, it says that it doesn't need a stop sign. My argument that it does is because of the safety of the children that are on that street. Jay LaForce and his wife, they've got 2 small girls. The Culvers, they have 2 small girls. I've got 2 boys. One of them's getting bigger. And the Gutteridges, they could have grandsons that could be over there, up there, 4 of them at a time. So I'd just like for you guys to take that into consideration. I mean, I understand that day when you guys put the meters out there that probably didn't get a lot of hits. A lot of times, if there's construction either on Hefner or on 122nd or on May, people will try to cut through that area there, and with the not a stop sign right there, they'll just come right down Lamppost, and it's a dead end. I mean, we have put up the dead end sign up there, and that it has slowed the traffic some, but I think a stop sign would help. And all of the families, everybody signed the petition in that area. So as a neighbor, I'm here to represent the neighborhood. Couldn't get anybody else to come with me, but I would like for you to ask you to please put the stop sign.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Can I have staff input, please?
Okay, you've got all our comments before you. When we reviewed the intersection and we collected all our traffic data, the intersection based on the type of control requested, doesn't come close volume-wise to the point where use of a stop control is necessary. At this point in time, it's our belief that the use of yield control on Leaning Elm Road at Lamppost Lane would be more appropriate. However, Mr. Nato did provide a petition indicating that 100% of all residents within the required petition canvas area supported the request for a stop control. So action will be at the discretion of the commission.
All right, thank you very much. Do we have a motion concerning item 5G?
I move to approve it as a stop sign as requested.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Yonkel
Second?
to approve item 5G, seconded by Commissioner George. Do you have any talk on this item? Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5G from Commissioner Yonkel, seconded by Commissioner George. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, item is approved. Comments from citizens. What do we have? Mr. Allen? If I could have your name, your address, and you have up to 5 minutes, sir.
Thank you. My name is Joey Allen, 3032 Southwest 125th Street in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Actually, I had two things that I wanted to mention just quickly. When you were talking about taxi stands and the use of those taxi stands and hotels pulling particular taxis, it may well be that they're pulling particular taxis, but I know that they're pulling limousine companies in and having them sit. So it may not be the taxi stands. The taxi stands may still serve a purpose, just FYI. I'm the general manager for King's Worldwide Transportation. We're a limousine service in Oklahoma City. The other thing that I wanted to mention and make you all aware of, I know that you said you were going to have some conversation about it, so I'll just mention it briefly, are Uber and Lyft. Those are two new apps that are available. They're new to Oklahoma City. They've been in probably for the last 3 years. Uber was started in San Francisco about 3 years ago. It's basically a tech startup. You sign up for the app, you push a button, and a car shows up. It really applies more to taxis than it does to the limousine side of the world, but we're members of the National Limousine Association, and they've taken quite a stand against it for a number of different reasons. I understand that you all are researching those reasons right now. My main concern is that they are, according to the news report as of Friday, they are operating in Oklahoma City. They're operating in an unlicensed car with an unlicensed vehicle. So we've heard several instances today about how important that is to this group of people. It's certainly important to us. We carry a $5 million liability policy, as well as all kinds of things to make sure that not only us but the city is protected in those things. So my concern immediately is that Uber Uber has three different arms, if you will. They have Uber, they have Sidecar, and they have UberX. UberX and Lyft operate basically the same way, which is any person with a car can sign up to be part of their system, and 15 minutes later, once their paperwork is approved by Uber or Lyft, then they can start sending jobs to that individual. So, no offense, Mom, but my 79-year-old mom and her 10-year-old town car could sign up for UberX this afternoon, and tomorrow she could be driving Kevin Durant. So I'm just saying that for those of us that go to a lot of effort to make sure that we do things the right way, we've got the correct insurance, we've got the correct licenses, we go through the background checks, all of those things that were required for our vehicles and for our chauffeurs, we just don't believe that it's a fair service to be operating unless they're operating on the same playing field as the rest of us. I think as I delve further into Uber and Lyft that we'll have more information on a broader scale. That's just something I think that the Commission could act on relatively quickly. So with that, I'll answer any questions, but thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much for your time. Yes, sir. Come on up. Just state your name and your address again, and you have up to 5 minutes to talk, sir.
I wanted to stick, I heard you were going to talk about Uber.
Sure.
And,
So if I could have your name and your address.
Charles Cotton, I own VIP Limousine, Tulsa, Oklahoma, 1831 East 71st. And what Joy was saying here with King's Limo is exactly right. We were approached by this company, my attorney was, in order to make a deal with us, and we just told them to take a flying leap and stay out of Oklahoma. This is the big trend right now. are these app companies. And they're shooting up all over the place, but Uber's the biggest. They've been capitalized for $250 million by Google. Amazon.com just threw in $50 million. But they've got big bucks. And a lot of litigation around the country. And every place they're going, they're getting the axe. And we hope that the state of Oklahoma is going to give them the axe too, because they're bad news. I don't talk bad about anybody, but these guys are unbelievable. They just, for example, the state of California 2 weeks ago did a ruling that they have to comply. And the Public Utilities Commission there is one of the toughest of any state. They're domesticated in San Francisco. Even the city of San Francisco said that they can't operate the way they're done. Los Angeles, Houston, Dallas, Boston, Chicago, and so forth. And now they're going to attack the secondary markets, and that's a major concern. They just have no regard for the laws. So what the real problem now is that they're treating them as not employees. It's just a free-for-all. So, for example, if any of you wanted to jump in there, you can put your car down here in Bricktown. They'll assign you, you'd be there from, say, 10 till 2 in the morning, and to do cab rides. And they'll give you the app, and we got somebody at Mickey Mantle's wants to go to the hotel. And whoever gets there first gets the job. They're handling all the money, to the everything. It's just, it's the most insane thing I've ever seen. And just day before yesterday, they've hired a group with 5 lobbyists in Washington. They think they're going to change all the federal rules. I mean, these people are just unbelievable. Now, what's, in my opinion, personally, what I think's behind all this is the fact that, and I've been very vocal about this nationally. I'm a former stockbroker, and all they're trying to do is an IPO. All these boys are out of Silicon Valley, and they think they're going to be another Google, take that thing up to $1,000 a share, and make a home run. That's what this is all about. And I don't think they'll ever get it to the SEC if they even get a prospectus out there, because this new commissioner, she's tough. And but in the meantime, we can't let them come into Oklahoma, period. It's a bad deal. And the public is not protected. So just, I'll help any way I can. I've got a ton of material. We follow them constantly, every day. We're monitoring these people.
All right.
And so we're available to help the city, the state, any way we can.
Very good. Thank you. Anybody else for citizen for comments? I think, Randy, now's your time. Make sure to fill out a form when you're done, please. If I could have your name and your address, please. Randy's going to go ahead and talk about the bike situation.
I'm Randy Ince, the transportation planner for the City of Oklahoma City, 420 West Main. I actually don't have a presentation. I'm here to answer any questions you might have. We're kind of stalled currently with the education program because of some design changes we're having to make to our bicycle routes. The funding we have is tied in together with the construction. So until the construction portion is done, we won't know how much money we have to put towards the program.
Well, so what are we looking at now? What's the warm, fuzzy feel of when we'll be able to go out to the citizens and say, bike routes, bike ride-in, this is how we're supposed to do it?
Hopefully sometime in the spring before the really active part of bicycling begins. Over the winter, we can get the RFQ out. And
if I could ask, even if you can't buy time, if maybe you can do some press releases as we start finishing up the winter time, January, February, and maybe all the news agencies, the papers will at least publish your press release of what's been done over the last 4 or 5 years for bicycle traffic, why, how come, where it's at, where's it going, basic safety things that could get people ready. And if they do it on their own, then it's thanks on them. But at least we, as the city, now that we've had the routes, we are now marking the routes all over the place, the signs are going up, the bike lanes are going up. I really think it's time we get something out to the whole population so they know.
Yep.
And I think that by January, if we could start at least getting that info out, even if there's zero money available, just a press release saying, here's 3-4 pages about bike routes and bike travel.
We have done those in the past. I mean, it depends on, and you'll see certain articles come out of it in the Gazette and the Oklahoman in the past.
Exactly.
We've also had some response from downtown OKC. They produced with us a video of how to ride safely downtown.
That was very
so
good,
there have been activities going on, just haven't been related to that funding
Right,
specifically.
I understand. Anything else?
What's driving the route changes?
It's just, it's not the location of the routes, it's the way we're marking them. Want to try to put more signage on single posts as opposed to having several different posts out there.
Okay, so any other talk about?
Yeah, I got a quick question. The downtown bike trail, not trails, but they're in the street, that are the new
bike
markings.
lanes?
Yeah, bike lanes, thanks. Those are really well marked for bikes. I mean, they almost look like they're for bikes only, but they're not, are they? I mean, you have 2 lanes, and the bike is no longer next to the curb, it's out in the middle, toward the center of the 2 lanes. But cars are allowed in that right shoulder lane as well?
If it is a bike lane, which is marked with a solid white line, so it would usually be parallel parking and then 5-foot bike lane, that is for bikes exclusively. If it is a sharo, which is the bike element with the 2 arrows on top of it, or the chevron,
Okay.
that is mixed use, so it is meant to be shared. It is an indication for people to know that cyclists may be there.
Right. Okay. So it'll have two
The
lines
2 arrows on top.
on top of the bicycle?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then cars are allowed
Yes.
there. Okay, thank you.
I have a question. With the education, I'm concerned about how much emphasis will be placed on the bicycle rider, because some of them are real dangerous on the streets. Coming down here today, there was one behind me, which I was glad I was 2 or 3 car lengths ahead of him. And I thought, I don't know what he's going to do. Well, when we got to a place coming under the underpass on 4th Street, as you approach Broadway, he moved to the outside lane and just cut straight across. And I go, he's going to get hit. But I just wonder how much education is going to be in that area.
The education is designed to reach both riders and drivers, both users of the road. I mean, everybody has to share the road together. It's kind of a trite phrase. It's been overused. But they're both vehicles, and they're both legal vehicles on the road, so they have to learn how to interact.
And I just want to say thanks for your work and all this, and we've worked with you for years. We just need to get done. I know.
I agree.
Anybody else have something? Okay, very good. Thank you for your time, sir. Okay, any other citizens for comment? Okay, let's go down to the commissioners. Sir?
I got a comment from a citizen at 30th, Northwest 30th and May Avenue, that the light there seems to be ajar, that it stays red an excessively long period of time for people on 30th trying to get onto May Avenue. And I told her that I would mention that today.
Okay, how recently did you get this report?
Pardon me?
How recently were you contacted?
Within the past 2 days.
Okay, because that particular intersection is getting equipped with I think it now has a flashing yellow arrow to allow permissive left turns to go from May Avenue onto 30th Street. Is your report that it's difficult to get from 30th Street onto May or across?
Yes.
Okay. It just stays red for a very long time. Okay, well, I know the May Avenue corridor is part of a coordinated system, so there will be times when people will notice it. When they'll pull up on the side streets, and in the past they might have been served if they were, as soon as there was a gap in traffic on May Avenue, but when we start changing over to coordinated patterns, signal operation isn't the same as what people remember, and so a lot of people will perceive that as kind of an operational issue, when really it functions more as an operational change, and we're still providing service to the side streets, but just not in the same manner that a lot of people are used to seeing it.
I'll let her know. And also, the first meeting of the Traffic Calming Committee will be this afternoon after this adjourns. Looking forward to reporting what gets discussed at the next hearing.
Okay. Commissioner Newton.
I'm a little concerned over the Lyft and the Uber as well. I'd like to know what the next step is for us to not necessarily call them out, but to try to make sure that they are complying with our ordinances and regulations.
We were talking about it just previously. You know, in the past, we've allowed a non-for-profit to do almost that same kind of thing. Somebody signs up with their vehicle, somebody else calls, this non-for-profit goes, picks them up and takes them somewhere. And we said that that's okay. This is now a vehicle for hire.
Yes, it is.
And so I think the basic from us to the sergeant is vehicle for hire is a vehicle for hire. He just needs to notify that one company or all the companies that they need to look at what's required here in Oklahoma City and they need to comply.
I'm not opposed to somebody making $1 driving a taxi. What I'm opposed to is not following the regulations.
Exactly.
We have regulations in the city that need to be followed for reasons of safety.
Exactly.
If nothing else. And I don't want somebody hopping in a car and getting into an accident, getting possibly hurt or killed for nothing other than to save a couple of dollars. That's just not worth it, in my opinion.
So if maybe we could have something to report at the next meeting from you of where this kind of went at our next meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Yep. Ma'am, any input? Okay. Sir?
No comments.
Very good. Sir?
Nothing to report. Thank you.
Ma'am?
Well, I'm with Newton. I'm not only concerned about the monetary issue, I'm concerned about the safety issue, because I don't know what kind of background checks are being done. And you could have any type of mass murderer who signs up and picks up a person and the person's never seen again. And with the article in this morning's paper, there is a celebrity as far as Oklahoma City is concerned, with Nick Collison being one of the riders. And so I see it developing pretty quickly in Oklahoma City. So that's my concern.
Well, and he said he's going to start calling as soon as the meeting's over.
Yeah. I've heard a little bit about it, and the app is a very popular app, obviously. They've got Google behind them. And Nick, I don't know where he lives when he's not here, but probably the city he lives in, lots and lots and thousands of people use Uber. And, my guess is that it's basically just a private contract between two people, and that's how they kind of circumvent cities. But I guess it sounds like they're already in courts all over, and so wait and see.
Yeah, we'll just see what he comes up with.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Sir, anything from you? Counselor? Sir?
You have our standard monthly report on some yield sign installations that were done in a couple neighborhoods, and just one parking restriction change that was done. But that's all I've got to offer.
Okay, the only thing I have is we need to clear the place. There is a 3:30 meeting here, so if we could kind of move on out so the next crew could come in for the 3:30 meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn from somebody, please? We have a motion from Commissioner Hale, seconded from Commissioner Littlefield. Everybody vote to go, please.